Story 1. The Midnight Passenger. It was past 3 a.m. when Morgan finally decided to leave the party. She had stayed longer than planned, not because she was having a great time, but because she felt too awkward to leave earlier. Her friend who had invited her had vanished into a corner with some guy, and Morgan didn't really know anyone else there. Still, the house was nice, the people were chill, and most importantly, she hadn't had a drop of alcohol. She had to drive home. Her car was parked 5 blocks away. The party had been in one of those retrofitted art studios in an industrial zone on the edge of town, so she had no choice but to leave it in a semi-abandoned lot under a flickering street. As she walked, the quiet was eerie. No traffic, no footsteps, just the faint buzz of power lines and her own boots echoing on the concrete. Morgan unlocked her car and immediately noticed something off. The driver door was already unlocked. She frowned. She always locked it. Always, but hey, maybe she was tired and just forgot it was late. She shrugged it off. She climbed into the driver's seat, dropped her purse on the passenger side, and started the ignition. That's when her eyes caught something in the rearview mirror. Movement. She froze. Her breath hitched. Slowly, she turned her head to look behind her hand. Her stomach dropped. A person lying down in her back seat. She let out a guttural scream and jumped out of the car so fast she almost twisted her ankle. From outside, she could now see them more clearly. A young woman, maybe in her 20s, curled up on the seat, hands raised in panic. I'm sorry. Please don't freak out," the woman cried. "I just needed a place to crash. I didn't mean to scare you." Morgan was still shaking. "What the hell are you doing in my car?" The woman's story spilled out. She'd also been at the party, didn't have a ride home, missed the last train, and in desperation, found Morgan's car unlocked and decided to sleep there. She claimed it wasn't safe to wander the streets alone at night. Morgan, still shaken but trying to compose herself, actually felt a small flicker of sympathy. It was a dumb move, sure, but not necessarily malicious. Maybe just ... desperate. She sighed. "Okay, fine, I'll give you a ride, but don't ever do that again, okay?" The woman nodded grateful and climbed into the passenger seat. Morgan drove off. At first their conversation was light. The woman introduced herself as Jess. She seemed nervous but friendly. Still, something didn't sit right. Her voice was odd, her tone shifted. Her backstory kept changing slightly. One moment she said she took the train into town. The next, she mentioned a bus station. She said she lived in the north, then casually referenced a street on the east side. Morgan's eyes kept flicking to her, subtly, and that's when she noticed it. The legs, they were covered in thick dark hair, like ... very thick. Like unnaturally thick for someone who had just identified as a young woman. Morgan's heart started to pound again. She looked closer. The hands were large, fingers thick, with visible knuckles and dirt under the nails. And suddenly it clicked. This wasn't a woman. Morgan didn't say a word. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel tighter. They were now 10 minutes from town, still in the middle of nowhere. Confrontation felt dangerous. She could feel Jess eyeing her from the side, maybe sensing that Morgan was growing tense. Then an idea formed. Morgan veered slightly off the road and intentionally swerved into a ditch. It wasn't violent, just jarring enough to shake them both and jolt the car into a lurching stop. "Damn it," Morgan shouted, pretending to panic. I think I hit something. I need to call the police, just in case." Before the person next to her could protest, she already had her phone in hand, dialing 911. That's when their voice changed. No, don't do that," they said quickly. "You don't need to call the cops. I have a friend nearby. He can help. He'll come pick us up." Red flags, alarms. Every cell in Morgan's body screamed danger, but the call had already connected. The dispatcher picked up. Morgan's voice, trembling but steady, gave her location and mentioned she felt unsafe. As she spoke, she noticed Jess opening the door and bolting into the darkness. The dispatcher stayed on the line as Morgan locked herself in the car and waited, hands still shaking. Within minutes, flashing blue lights illuminated the road. When the officers arrived, they took her statement. Then, one of them decided to check the trunk standard protocol, just in case. What they found froze the blood in Morgan's veins. A heavy-duty tarp, duct tape, a shovel. The officer turned to her, his face pale. "Ma'am, whoever that was, you were in serious danger. You got unbelievably lucky." Morgan never saw Jess again. No arrests were made, but for weeks, she couldn't sleep without checking her backseat twice, sometimes 3 times. And ever since, she locks her car with obsessive precision, just in case. Story 2. The man next door. When Ethan moved into the small rental house just outside the city, he thought it would be temporary. A 6-month internship in digital marketing had brought him here, and the house offered at a discount by a friend of his uncle was 5 minutes away from the office. It was quiet, a little too quiet, maybe. The furniture was minimal. The kitchen barely stocked, but it was fine. On his second weekend, he adopted a cat, a tiny black kitten with green eyes he named Orbit. With Orbit around, the house didn't feel so empty. One evening, while walking Orbit on a leash through the cul-de-sac, Ethan ran into his neighbor, a large man with buzzed hair and a goofy grin. At your cat?" he asked, amused. "You walk him?" Ethan laughed. "Yeah, he's like a dog, sort of." The man chuckled. "Cute. I'm Mason, by the way. House on the corner." Mason seemed nice enough, a little awkward maybe, but friendly. Over the next few days, Ethan would occasionally find little gestures like a beer left on his porch with a sticky note for a hard-working neighbor. It was odd, but kind. Mason also warned him about something strange. Cats had been disappearing in the neighborhood. Posters everywhere. Orbit should stay close. Ethan appreciated the concern. Orbit liked Mason, too. Whenever they passed his house, the kitten would perk up, sometimes even tug on the leash toward Mason's yard. "Animals know," Ethan would joke to himself. Mason claimed he used to work in construction, but had been laid off and was starting his own business. Ethan believed it. The guy was always tinkering with something in his garage. Weeks passed. Orbit got bolder, sneaking out through the window sometimes and returning hours later. But one Thursday evening, Ethan came home from work, and Orbit was gone. He waited, called, shook the treat bag. Nothing. As night fell, Ethan's worry deepened. He texted his girlfriend to cancel their dinner plans. "My cat's missing," he said. "I just can't think straight." In desperation, he knocked on Mason's door. After a long pause, Mason opened it. He was wearing black gloves, latex. His smile was tight. "Hey Ethan, everything okay?" Ethan explained Orbit was missing. Mason's expression stiffened. "Haven't seen him," he said quickly. "But maybe he'll come back later then." Oddly, he stepped aside. "You want to come in for a sec? I just made coffee." Ethan hesitated. Something felt off, but he nodded and stepped in. The house was barren. No decorations, no photos, almost sterile. They sat across from each other in silence for a moment. Then Mason launched into small talk work, whether neighborhood gossip, but his tone felt forced, robotic. As Mason spoke, his eyes never left Ethan's, like he was searching for something. Approval, fear. Ethan interrupted him gently. "Actually, I'm here because I was wondering if you could help me look." Mason blinked. "Look, for Orbit. I thought maybe he got into your backyard or before he could finish." A noise broke the tension, scratching behind a closed door down the hall. Ethan froze. Mason's eyes flicked toward it, then he smiled. "Probably nothing, old pipes." Ethan stood up. "Mind if I check?" Mason hesitated. Then his phone rang. "One sec," he said, stepping away. Ethan used the moment to send a quick voice message to his girlfriend. "Hey, I'm at Mason's. Something feels wrong. If I don't text back in 30 minutes, call someone." Then he walked to the door, opened it. Orbit shot out like a bullet, fur bristling, eyes wide with terror. He leaped into Ethan's arms, trembling. Ethan turned. Mason was standing there, phone still in hand. He must have slipped in. "I was gonna bring him back," he said too quickly. "Wasn't sure he was yours." Ethan didn't respond. He left, gripping Orbit tight. He didn't sleep that night. Over the next 2 weeks, he avoided Mason completely. But one day, he saw people entering the house next door. Curious, Ethan approached. A man in his 60s greeted him. "Can I help you?" "Hi, sorry. I thought this house belonged to someone named Mason." The man frowned. "No, I own it. It's been empty since renovations started, though." He paused. "A guy named Mason worked here months ago. Tiling, he got fired." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Did he still have keys?" The man looked startled. "God, I hope not." Ethan explained everything. The man paled. "That guy was weird. He'd hang around after work. We had to change locks." "You're saying he was living here?" Later, Ethan searched online. He found an article. A man matching Mason S.'s description had been arrested in a nearby town for attempting to steal a dog from someone S.'s backyard. The article mentioned prior allegations, disturbing ones, suspected abuse, unconfirmed links to mutilated animals. Ethan couldn't sleep for days. Orbit never left his sight again, and the beer bottles Mason left on his porch, Ethan kept one. As a reminder, because sometimes the scariest people are the ones who wave and smile and live right next door. Story 3: The Man Behind the Trees. Tyler hated walking home at night, but it was a habit he hadn't shaken since college. Something about the quiet, the cool air, the way the city melted into silence after 2 a.m. it used to comfort him. But this time was different. It was a Tuesday. His friend's birthday had gone longer than expected, and by the time he stepped out of the apartment, the last bus had already passed. He didn't feel like calling a rideshare. It was only a 25-minute walk, and he knew the streets well, hoodie up, earbuds in. He started the trek home. He was buzzed just enough to feel light, not enough to feel dumb. But after the third block, something started nagging at him. He couldn't place it. A sensation, like a subtle shift in the air. He took out one earbud and paused. Silence, then footsteps, slow, deliberate. But when he turned around, there was no one. He laughed nervously, probably a raccoon or echo or his own paranoia. He kept walking, took a different route, one that passed under a line of trees near the old park. The wind picked up, leaves rustled, then again footsteps. Closer, he turned fast. Empty sidewalk. He cursed himself. "You're being stupid," he muttered, but he picked up the pace. Another turn, another block. Then a sound he couldn't explain. Something metallic scraping on pavement. Not a trash can, not a bike. It was like dragging. He whipped out his phone and opened his messaging app. No recent texts, just his group chat from earlier. "Yo, we still on for next Saturday?" He typed quickly. "If I don't text back in 10 minutes, I'm not joking. Something's wrong. I think someone's following me." He didn't hit send. Not yet. He crossed the next street. Shadows flickered under a flickering lamppost, then a whisper, not words, just a sound, a breath, maybe behind him. He spun around again and finally he saw it, a figure, at least 30 feet away, standing still, head tilted. Tyler froze. The man didn't move, just stared. Tyler squinted. In the dim light, he saw what the man was holding, a butcher's knife, long, thick, reflecting just enough of the moon to catch his breath. Tyler's pulse exploded. He turned and ran, full sprint. His shoes slapped the ground, his lungs burned. He didn't look back, he just ran. But he could hear it, footsteps behind him, now running too. The man was chasing him. Tyler's mind screamed for solutions. The park, no too dark to open, the gas station, still 2 blocks away. Then he remembered there were security cameras outside the library. He bolted toward it, zigzagging between streets, cutting corners. At one point he nearly slipped on gravel, but he didn't stop. Behind him the footsteps were growing louder, closer. When he reached the library corner, he spun around just in time to see the man dart between 2 dumpsters, then vanish. Tyler ran to the camera pole, looked straight into the lens, and held his phone up with the flashlight on just in case someone was monitoring. Then, panting, he opened the group chat again. Hit send. "Now," he whispered. One of his friends responded instantly. "What's going on?" Tyler dropped a pin. "Track me." Then he called the police. As he spoke to the dispatcher, his hands shook. He gave his name, his location, described the man. She told him to stay where he was. Officers were en route, but he couldn't wait. He walked fast, head on a swivel, until he reached his street. When he turned the corner onto his block, he saw it. His front porch light was off. He always left it on. Always. His stomach dropped. He looked behind him. Nothing. No one. He rushed inside, slammed the door, and locked it, bolt chain, everything. Then he activated the house alarm manually from his phone. He'd never used it before. It beeped once, twice. Armed, he grabbed a kitchen knife and sat on the floor of his living room. Lights off, eyes on the door. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then headlights flashing red and blue. The police. He opened the door, shaking, and explained everything. They swept the neighborhood, found no one. But they did check the security footage from the library camera. The officer returned an hour later with a pale face. "You weren't imagining it," he said. "He was following you. Closely, we saw him duck behind cars, disappear behind trees, then sprint after you when you ran." Tyler felt his knees go weak. "Did he ever stop?" "Only when you got near your house," the officer said. "Then he disappeared. We're still searching." Tyler didn't sleep that night, or the next. The man was never caught. But Tyler changed after that. He never walked home alone again. He kept the knife in his drawer, and every time he heard footsteps at night, he looked out the window with his heart in his throat, because he never forgot the eyes of the man behind the trees.